Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and welcome back to another video, guys. In today's video, this is going to be another episode of Left 4 Dead 2 What If. For those of you guys that are new to the What If series here on the channel, basically what it is that this is a Left 4 Dead version of the Marvel series What If. So if you are not familiar with the Marvel series What If, let me explain. Basically, the idea behind both the Marvel show and also this is that the idea is that we're going to be taking existing storylines and flipping them on their heads. So a storyline or a character trait or something that is related to the canon of the universe that we were talking about, we are going to be taking a moment from that said canon and we're going to be altering it. Whether it be changing a character trait, whether it be changing a piece of the timeline, pretty much anything you can think of. We're just making either anywhere from a minute to a gigundo switch. And the reason why we're doing that is because this is for just fun theory, concept. We can be able to see in a situation that was different from the canon version what would end up happening. Because it's cool to theorize and think about the alternate outcomes. My favorite form of storytelling is a piece of story that actually can have multiple versions. I really do enjoy playing games that end up having decisions, such as Detroit Become Human, The Walking Dead, and Until Dawn. Now, some people play video games because they just want to end up having mindless fun, and that's completely fine, and you can do whatever you want with a video game. But for me in particular, I really do like a riveting story, regardless of what game it is. If there is lore in it, I want to know what it is. Even if it's not my favorite, I just want to have the choice. And that is why I'm going to be giving this series not only a bit of flavor by discussing so many different things, but I also want to end up making it where you guys are involved and you have choices based off of this series. So if there is a particular topic, guys, that you would like to see be discussed in a future episode of Left 4 Dead 2 What If, please put it in the comments down below. So yeah, guys, that's going to be our 2-minute intro there, just to basically kind of re-explain everything, just because the series has been gone for a little bit. It's almost been 2 months since the last episode. The reason why it just took so long is because out of all my Left 4 Dead series, even though this may seem like the exact opposite of this, what I'm about to say, but this series does take one of the most amounts of effort in order to end up making, because each episode I want to have meaning, and I don't want to just pick a random stupid topic that obviously can be just talked about in a matter of like 5 seconds. And I want to make sure that these episodes are very well detailed, so that's just why it took me so long to get back to it. So I do apologize for the wait, but I hope that you guys understand and you guys look forward to seeing this series again. I want to try to make it more often again if I can. But yeah, guys, let's talk about, finally, after all this time, what is going to be the topic of the next episode. The next topic that we're going to be talking about is Left 4 Dead 2. What if Zoe's parents didn't die? For those of you guys that don't know about the Left 4 Dead series, there is one part in the storyline that may or may not be clarified for you, depending on how often you end up researching stuff about the game. And that's the Left 4 Dead comics. There is a sub-series of comics where there's 4 parts, or you can think of them as one giant comic book or several mini comic books, basically explaining the backstories of the Left 4 Dead 1 crew, which in this case is Francis, Bill, Lewis, and Zoe. And in Zoe's particular case, when it came to the Sacrifice comics, she was in part 2 of the series. And in this specific comic, it gives us backstory about how Zoe ended up becoming the survivor that she is. And one of the ways that they do that is by showing Zoe losing her parents. Because in Zoe's origin story, we end up seeing that Zoe's mom ends up getting bit, which then she turns into a zombie herself. She ends up biting Zoe's dad, leading to Zoe having to kill her own dad. This is basically what sets Zoe up for being the, survivor that she is today. And I wanted to talk about the alternate version of that being, what if Zoe's parents just didn't die? What if one parent lived? What if both parents lived? What would happen to Zoe fundamentally as a character if she wasn't having to rely on Francis and Lewis and Bill all the time? Because if you really think about it, when someone is removed or added to a storyline, regardless if it's a movie, TV show, book, or a video game, character dynamic is going to change, absolutely. And so, someone as close to Zoe as her own parents, I can only imagine that it would be drastically different. But however, though, that's the fun part about this series, that it also may not be what you expect. Sometimes we can end up having these little subcategories with these butterfly effects. Sometimes a situation in a story can cause the exact same thing to happen over and over and over again, such as with the reference, and I'm going to reference Avengers Endgame, where Doctor Strange is talking to everybody, including Iron Man, where Iron Man's asking about how many situations did they beat Thanos, and he, of course, only ends up saying one. So, sometimes you can end up getting a situation that happens, but sometimes it's more rare, and sometimes it's not as rare as you might think it is. So, let's talk about several different scenarios about what would happen if Zoe's parents lived versus when they ended up dying. So let's talk about the first scenario, which would just be both parents live. So let's talk about this. If both Zoe's father and Zoe's mother lived, what would happen? So let's take the comic for just a situation here real quick. Let's just say that they end up living through the comic part. So the zombie breaks into their house, and let's just say, for the sake of making the thing simple, let's just say that Zoe's dad pulls out his gun and kills the zombie before the zombie can even do anything, therefore saving Zoe and also her mom, and they end up living. If Zoe's mom and also Zoe's dad were alive in this case, you know that the first thing that they would end up doing right away is figure out exactly what the heck is going on and try to get out of town as soon as they possibly can. Because there is no way in my mind I can imagine Zoe's dad just being like, oh yeah, we're just going to shrug this off, because Zoe's dad seems very protective and very caring of Zoe, and same thing also with his wife being Zoe's mom. Now, Zoe's mom would probably try to end up being the more, the more passive, I feel, one out of the group, because even though she ends up caring for Zoe and wants, Zoe to end up like going to school, is a lot more strict with her, she also, I don't think, would really be as much of a fighter as Zoe's dad, because Zoe's dad is the yin to the yang in this scenario, where he's the, the masculine stereotypical protector in this case, and, Zoe's mom is just the exact opposite. I'm not trying to make it like a sexist thing, I'm just trying to point out that we just all know that Zoe's mom is more passive and Zoe's dad is just more aggressive. He's trying to take care of his family. So the idea is here is I think that Zoe would have to end up having a little bit of a, not necessarily like a nitpicky thing, but it could theoretically be a nitpicky thing, because keep in mind Zoe's parents were fighting in the comics right up until they died. I think that there would be a set of periods of time where both Zoe's parents, they would end up arguing, saying about, like, what's going to be best for Zoe. Zoe's dad would probably immediately want Zoe to end up learning how to, like, do every single form of combat, every single form of self-defense, figure out who to trust, figure out who not to trust. I feel like that Zoe's mom would try to be like, you need to end up getting with a group of survivors, we need to end up getting help, we need to get to the military, we need strength in numbers. Basically, just being, like, together as a group, and I feel like that Zoe's dad would be more like, we need to be more independent and have, like, very minimal people as possible, and just try to survive by ourselves. I feel like that Zoe would actually end up having a really close connection to her dad, even more in this scenario, by the way. Because, like, not necessarily to say that Zoe doesn't love her mom, but I feel like that Zoe, ends up caring for her dad just slightly more, just only solely because that Zoe's dad is a little bit more loose, and plus also her dad ends up, like, kind of, like, encouraging Zoe to end up doing the things that she likes, even though that's not exactly good for her, such as the horror movie thing that they reference in the comics. But we all know that, a child is going to end up bonding with their parent that they feel the most connected to when they end up trying to support them, what they do emotionally. Because even though Zoe's mom is trying to do what's best for her by trying to get her to, like, do educational stuff, because it was referencing school, back with her going, like, to college and how she was messing up with her grades, I feel like that even though she does truly love her mom dearly, Zoe would be connected more to her dad. And so therefore, in these zombie apocalypse situations, she would also probably therefore listen to her dad more. Now, would this result in a tear between Zoe's mom and even Zoe's dad? Theoretically, it depends. I definitely could see both Zoe's mom and dad going at each other's throats more because of this, because they're trying to protect Zoe now. It's not a matter just of her education, it's keeping her safe and alive, on top of keeping each other alive. So they would probably be bashing heads even more now, and Zoe would still have to deal with that drama while trying to survive. Would that be good for her? Absolutely not. It would be a very stressful thing. But however, though, having her parents with her would be a different type of reassurance, and it would definitely still be good for her to have her family with her. Now, let's say hypothetically that even though her parents don't die, let's say they still end up meeting Francis, Bill, and Lewis. Now, if they were to meet Francis, Bill, and Lewis, I could still see that Zoe would get along very well with everybody, And to a certain degree, I can also see Zoe's dad getting, with everybody. In fact, actually, I think that Bill and Zoe's dad would agree on quite a lot of things, but also at the same time, ironically, I feel like that they would also disagree on a lot of things. Because even though Bill basically is Zoe's surrogate father figure within the story, I still feel that Zoe with her dad is going to be more of a, I guess you could say, an importance in this regard than Bill. Because obviously, Bill's not her real dad. The only reason why Zoe's so connected to Bill is because of the fact that her dad is dead. And when it comes to Bill, I feel like that if anything, he would be more considered like a grandfather figure. Not necessarily that's a bad thing, but he would just be kind of like down on the totem pole a little bit. Now, this doesn't mean that Bill has like no purpose. It doesn't mean that at all. I'm just saying is that in terms of priorities, that's where I think he would stand. Now, I think that there would also be a big problem, though, with, like, things such as Francis. I feel like that Zoe's dad would be, like, hesitant towards him, because even though he can survive and he would be able to contribute to the group, he'd probably be suspicious, just considering the fact that he's like, ooh, me, macho biker, get away from my daughter, yada yada. And then Zoe's mom would also probably even red flag that as well, so ironically, staring at Francis, they would probably both agree on something for once. But they would probably be reassured by Bill and also Lewis to be like, hey, we're just all trying to survive out here. I can even see a situation where, like, Zoe's parents is going to be like, oh, well, we want you to stay with, Bill because, Francis is untrustworthy and, we just don't know about Lewis. Lewis just seems weird. No, I'm just giving shit. I'm just completely making that last part up about Lewis. No, Lewis would be a good guy. But, yeah, I can definitely see there being tensions for good and also for bad reasons. But at the end of the day, I feel like the group would honestly get along quite well. I feel like that Bill would be a grandfather figure in this case. Francis would just be considered just mildly suspicious, and Lewis would just be kind of there, just like how he normally is. No real big takeaway in either direction, good or bad. He would just be the way he pretty much is. I don't think things would change much. Now, here's the thing, is that even though I think this is all fine and dandy, let's talk about the ultimate outcome. Would they survive? Do I think that if Bill, Lewis, Francis, and Zoe could survive with Zoe's parents? Yes, I do think so. However, though, I don't think it would be permanently. Because let's say the story plays out the exact same way that it does before. Like, let's say they go from no mercy all the way up to the sacrifice. I feel like it would play out pretty much for the most part the exact same way. But I can tell you this, is that as much as this might seem sad and might just seem counterintuitive because the whole entire idea is we're trying to imagine if their, her parents lived, I feel like in the sacrifice scenario specifically, probably what would happen is that it wouldn't be Bill sacrificing, I think it'd be Zoe's dad. Because even though Bill is old, and Bill's like, like in the sacrifice, because obviously you can tell that Bill's mentality going into the sacrifice is, you know what, screw it, I'm an old man, I'm a veteran, I want to save my surrogate family, and I want to make sure that they all can live happily ever after, I'm just gonna just do this, because otherwise we might all die. Zoe's dad obviously is a lot younger, in better shape. He's not necessarily, like, got, like, a, almost kind of like a suicidal mission mentality going about him. I can still see it being, like, where Bill does sacrifice himself, yes. But I can also see in the heat of the moment, without thinking too clearly, like, you just make a last-second decision just spontaneously. I can easily see Zoe's dad sacrificing himself. And that would probably be a really good way to wrap things up with their story. Because I don't think that Zoe's parents would make it the whole entire way through. And as much as that sounds sad, I just don't think they would. And especially because here's the reason why. Is because Zoe's dad is... I feel like Zoe's dad would end up having it where he would end up making a mistake. Because Bill and Lewis and Zoe and Francis, they all have such similarities and yet such opposite, contrasting personalities. It's so funny. They agree with each other on a lot of things, but they have enough differences that make them all click, and they're perfect in some scenarios, because they can all counter-check each other. If one person is off, the other three help them. Or sometimes in the worst-case scenario, if 3 people are off, that one other person will help them. And the thing is, though, is that I can just imagine Bill and Zoe's dad being too similar, to the point where what would happen is that they would try to end up being the leader of the group, and they would end up being hot-headed towards each other eventually. Not, like, initially right off the bat, but they would probably end up fighting for her sense of control, and that would probably result in somebody getting killed or something. Because when you have two alpha male thinking types of people, they obviously want to be the person leading. And what happens is, in the animal kingdom, when there's an alpha against another alpha, there will inevitably be a fight to have one person left. I'm not saying that they're going to kill each other, but probably what's going to happen is that they will indirectly kill each other. One person will probably make a decision or a call that will make a mistake and get someone killed, and I think at the end of the day, that's going to be Zoe's dad that gets killed. Do I think it's going to be responsible because of Bill? No, I actually think it's going to be Zoe's dad's own undoing. Because I think what's going to happen is that Zoe's dad, such as in the sacrifice example, is going to be trying to be like, hey, you know what? I'm manly, I'm tough as shit, I can save everybody. And so what happens is that he goes into the sacrifice scenario thinking he can save everybody, but he doesn't come back. So that is why I mentioned that. Now for Zoe's mom, why do I think that she would just live only up until the very end? I feel like that just the thing is with Zoe's mom is that she's just not the survivor type. She's like, Zoe's mom seems a lot like Lori from The Walking Dead. Very nice, and even though, you know, like, I'm not trying to say that she's annoying like Lori, because we all know that in The Walking Dead, Lori was pretty annoying. If you watch the show, at least. But the thing is, though, is that Zoe's mom seems just like the stereotypical mother being like, I hope the military just makes this go away type of thing. And wouldn't really survive, because that's just what she is. She's trying to wait it out and just hope for the best for just something that probably isn't going to happen. You know, in any sort of zombie apocalypse scenario, realistically, it's probably never going to be a thing you can undo. If a movie or a story tries to undo a zombie apocalypse with some sort of cure, it's far and few between, and it's usually hokey. So the zombie apocalypse would probably be a permanent thing, and the people that think otherwise are usually the people that end up getting killed. I can't give you a perfect scenario to say within which campaign, or even, you know, like in a fictional scenario when she would die. I just figured that she would. I could be completely wrong. She could have character development that would prove me wrong, but like I said, this is hypothetical. I'm just going off of what I think would happen. I can't go off of anything other than what I just portray her as from the comics. So that's what I think about that scenario. Now we also got to keep in mind, what happens if only one parent lives? Let's say that Zoe's mom or Zoe's dad is the only one that's left standing. If it was Zoe's mom, I'm just going to cut straight to the exact same thing like I just said just a moment ago. I think that she wouldn't last that long. Zoe's mom would probably get Zoe probably up to the point where it was that they would meet up with Louis, Francis, and Bill. But I think shortly after, she probably would die. No predictable way, no specific way. I'm just saying that just at some point I feel like she would die. But like I said, she could have character development that would prove me wrong. But the one scenario in particular that I think is the most interesting is if it was just Zoe's dad that lived in particular. Because the reason why is I say this. There is a Left 4 Dead theory that goes around occasionally out and about, and you can look this up. But there is basically this fan theory talking about how that when it comes to the Left 4 Dead survivors' immunity to the the green flu virus, the idea is that it's passed on from the dad. Therefore, there's a lot of theories going around that suggest that Zoe's dad was immune to the virus and would have lived if Zoe had not killed him. Now, this could have been for the sake of character development that they did this, being like, oh, we're going to say that Zoe's dad is immune, so that way when Zoe kills him, it's even more traumatic and therefore gives character development. It could be for that very reason, but let's think about that for a second. Let's dive into that. What if Zoe's dad could have lived? What if, for whatever reason, let's just say Zoe didn't kill him immediately and tried to save him. Like, let's say she was going to be like, oh, I'm not going to let you die, and she actually ends up saving him. Let's just say that he lives. I feel like that you would get a very similar situation to like what I said, like when I meant when, they would end up getting over to Bill, Louis, and Francis. But I also feel like at the exact same time, slightly different though, even though that could happen, I want to talk about a suggestion of a different idea. What if they never met up with Louis, Francis, and Bill? What if they just went away on their own? If Zoe and Zoe's dad went around on their own, I can most certainly see them living. Zoe's dad would probably teach her everything that he could think of that would defend her, such as being able to get good with guns, being able to get good with melee weapons, how to take care of yourself, how to know who and who to not trust, stuff like that. They probably would just keep like an eye on the military, not exactly fully go to them, because I don't think that they would end up wanting to entrap themselves with the military, because I feel like in a certain situation, and we all know what happens with the the Left 4 Dead military, is that if they think you're immune, they want to know why, and they're going to try to test on you. And I think Zoe's dad would be aware of that and be suspicious of that to know not to ever go to them. You probably would like hang out near the area, far enough that they would never be found by them, but close enough that they would have the means to be able to defend themselves if they had to have a serious backup plan. And I feel like that this is a coin toss whether or not they would do that or go with the original crew. Theoretically, they could end up having this first circumstance happen where they end up going away by themselves and then they run into them later, and then you have them go through different maps, different storylines, etc. And I feel like that this is probably going to be the most interesting story because it's the most fun to think about. Because when a theory ends up like talking about the same situation but with just slightly different modifications, it can lead to good storytelling, but people kind of want to see like a drastic difference. That's kind of the whole entire point of the idea of What If, is we want to see like a gigundo difference, like a massive different shift. And although that's not necessary, it is the fun stuff. So let's talk about one last thing. Let's talk about that if instead of saying that Zoe's parents both lived or only one of them lived, let's just talk about this. What if that Zoe's parents lived, but Zoe died? This would be a really drastically different sense of storytelling. For whatever reason, let's just say, for just the sake of it, that Zoe's parents lived and Zoe dies. What would happen? This would be drastically different in my opinion, because I think that what would end up happening is that Zoe's dad and Zoe's mom would probably be more closer than ever. They probably would initially fucking hate each other because they would probably say it's the other one's fault for getting Zoe killed. But in due time, trauma can sometimes bond people. And I feel like that Zoe's parents would end up being together more now than ever because they would need to survive, and they would have to end up being able to end up having the option to be able to end up getting to other survivors, because what are they going to do now? They lost their only daughter from just one single zombie. What are they going to do? Are they just going to sit down and lie down and die? No, they're probably going to just naturally try to survive and put away their differences for the sake of not only themselves, but for the rest of humanity. They don't know what the heck's happening. If one zombie was able to kill basically what they didn't know at the time, an immune daughter, then what are they going to do, and what's that say for them? They would probably end up then going to the military, I feel like, at this point, out of desperation and shock. And then they would probably end up having the situation where they end up going to the sacrifice style type of military, where I think that Zoe's dad, I honestly think he's immune. I generally do think that Zoe did kill her dad a little bit premature, and he could have theoretically lived. I do believe in that theory. And I feel like what would happen is that you get a similar situation where Zoe's dad, at least, is immune, and they would try to end up like testing on him if they ever did go to the military, which I think that he would, trying to like figure out like just some way to like, and the sake of shock, he'd probably be like, we need to get this taken care of so that way I could like, do this and blah 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 and save my daughter, because like he would probably be in, like I said, initial shock. As much as that sounds sad, but like when people like face death, sometimes people think that even though the most brutal of deaths happen, they think they can bring people back. And I'm not saying that he's delusional. It would just be, like I said, trauma. Everyone's different during trauma. And he would probably just try to turn to basically Bill. Zoe's dad would try to be like, I'm gonna fucking kill everything that end up just like being born on this God's earth. And anything that gets in my way is gonna be a fucking dead man. And that would be it. And then maybe he would run into Bill later. Or maybe he would end up becoming basically the Bill of this series because of everything that he went through. It's just something you gotta think about, and it's just something that I thought would be very interesting. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it here for today's video. I do truly hope you guys ended up enjoying seeing today's video, and I hope you guys ended up enjoying seeing another episode of Left 4 Dead 2 What If. If you guys end up enjoying today's episode, please, as always, show your guys' support by dropping a like, comment, and subscribe, and all that beautiful stuff. I basically have gone the last several minutes without basically taking a goddamn breath, so I'm going to start wrapping things up here. So I hope you guys end up enjoying. If you guys would like to financially support the channel, I would definitely appreciate it if you guys could go check out my Patreon. It's always linked down below in all my YouTube video descriptions. Or you guys could use supporter creator code BlackNinja797 in all caps in the Fortnite Epic Games item shops, because Epic is my very first sponsor, and they're sponsoring today's video, so shout out to Epic Games. And yeah, guys, I hope you end up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most unique YouTuber you guys are ever going to see. Thank you for watching, guys, and peace out.
Hey, meme lords, Jesus here, and you better have enjoyed that video there by the eternal god Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too. Or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too. And give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!